Well, welcome back to the Rom-Com Love Podcast, and we are so thrilled today to have actor and director Peter Benson with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you both.
Oh, you too, Peter. Such a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Well, let's dive right into your latest movie that you just had
Hey.
directed, which was the 13th in the series of the Hannah
Wow.
Swensen Mysteries, Sugar and Vice. So, what excited you the most about stepping into Hannah's world?
Well, I mean, it's such a successful franchise. So, anytime you're invited to be a part of something that's already kind of successful and up and running, it's a real privilege and stuff. And mainly the first thing that excited me was working with this cast because I'd worked with several of them in other projects. I've worked with Allison a couple times,
Mhm,
and Barbara a couple times.
mhm.
So it's sort of like been mentioned maybe jumping onto one of these. So I was thrilled to jump in there. And I'd never worked with Victor. We'd met before, but I'd never worked with him, even as an actor. So that was great. And I just was really thrilled to be invited into their world at the cookie jar.
Oh.
So, how does that dynamic of a cast that knows their characters so well, especially like I said, for a 13th movie, how does that influence the ways you might try to find new sides of them?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, it's kind of like directing episodic TV, and
Mhm.
and I always think about it like if you're directing Friends season 7, you don't want to come in and tell Ross like I don't think he'd pick up the cup like that because he'd be like, why don't you go get me a coffee and just back off, right? So you want to try to like trust them that they know their characters and then just make suggestions. That's usually what I try and do is like, what if we tried one like this? Or if you said this instead of that, do you want to just see if that works? Or, if I think one of my favorite things, even as an actor, is doing takes differently. So if you nail it on take one, it's like, what if we play the opposite of that intention or something? So you're not trying to change the character per se, but just give them a different way to play the scene and something to try and experiment with. And then in the edit, you get to see which one kind of worked or didn't. And I always think of it when you're coming in a situation like that. It's like the train is already moving along the tracks. So as the guest director, you're just trying to keep it on those tracks, maybe add a couple little things, but you just don't want that train falling off on your watch.
Making sure no train wrecks happen.
No train wrecks is the goal.
Well, I will say I did get a chance to talk with Alice and Victor and Barbara last week, and they were just so complimentary, of course, about how you allow the creativeness to happen and so supporting of taking chances. And then for you being an actor, of course, then that's that unspoken language that everybody understands versus you do this kind of a thing. So
Yeah,
they
I mean, it's one of those things that I think every person who approaches a film project brings whatever their experience is. And, I started acting classes when I was 11 years old or 12 years old or something. So I've studied acting and I've lived it and I've done plays and whatever. It's really been, my favorite thing to do. And then that's morphed into writing and producing and directing and stuff. But I always sort of see the world first through an actor's eyes, and so the first thing I always have is like massive respect for everybody that they're up there. It looks a lot easier than it is to stand in front of a crew at 6 in the morning and yell out, "That's the murderer," or whatever, or do a silly dance or do a thing, right? It's vulnerable up there. So
Mhm.
I'm already on their side right from the get-go. And so hopefully actors know that when I work with them. And so I always try and lead with like encouragement and positivity and not to say that you don't challenge somebody to do something different, but if you're you can get shut down pretty quickly as an actor. And if somebody kind of throws you a negative thing or yells or creates a bad energy, you're going to go smaller and kind of safer. And what you want is people to push the boundaries, not to contain them, right? So I just try to start with support and appreciation for them right from the get-go. And also try to, one of my favorite things that an acting teacher said to me once is they call it a play for a reason. We're supposed to play out here. And so that's something you gotta, even though we're getting older, some of us in the Hallmark universe, we got to keep that sort of like childlike joy and fun of telling these stories. I mean, as serious as it is, we're playing dress up for a living, right? So if you have fun, I think that comes through the screen. And so you want to just sort of give an atmosphere where the actors feel safe to do that.
Mm, definitely. So, do you still have your frame photo in your office of that they gave you as a thank you gift of your
You know,
costume?
I thought you might ask. So I did take it down from the office and I've got it back here. I don't know if Zoom will do it justice, but it was this is
That is
this is our
glorious.
photo here.
Raise it.
Yeah.
There we go.
And you know, it's quite something. And then everybody
Amazing,
signed the
amazing,
back,
Peter.
which was very
Yes.
exciting.
Oh.
And they really embarrassed me when they gave me this photo. So it was a good moment. And I was definitely surprised. It was like when you're in director mode, you're not thinking about the spotlight being on you, you know. So when somebody rolls up and they're like, 1 second, 1 second, and then Allison gave it to me and I was like beat red and they gave me the thing, but it was really fun.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
so
Love it. Well, I have
And I'm
one.
also a shoe junkie. I love Nikes and Air Jordans. And I had these, I don't even know if you could actually see them in the show, but there were these really cool black and red Air Jordans that they allowed me to keep as well. So it was two gifts, which was very nice.
That is awesome. I'll have to go back and look.
yeah.
Well, my last question on the mysteries before we move over to some rom-coms is
Yeah.
so you've directed several different mystery series, and then of course you played a detective in the Aurora movies. So with your perspective on both sides of the camera, how do you shape the suspense and that we see on camera? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's a good question. You know, if I'm being honest, I think specifically with the mysteries, it starts with the script. You know, because if you have a few legitimate red herrings, then as you know, whether you're the actor or the director, you can kind of lean into those more. You know, give us a little more suspicious take. Maybe she's got a secret that we don't know, or you know, that she's holding back on that, or you know, when she's questioned about this, maybe don't give the honest answer, or something like little things like that that can give like misdirects and whatever. You still want them to be honest so that if they're holding a secret, it's about something else, not that they murdered somebody, but maybe they, you know, cheated in the contest or whatever the thing is. So I always try to keep it truthful, but you can kind of plant those seeds. But most of it really, you know, starts with a great script. And I found, you know, doing the Auroras for years, and then, you know, I was fortunate to direct a couple of the other ones. Um, if you have like legitimate good red herrings and legitimate, you know, it could be this, it could be that, that's where it's really fun. And then it, again, as an actor or a director, you can lean into that a bit more too. When shaping the story, and that's also where editing comes in, because you know you could edit this conversation and it's everyone smiling, or you could cut to the moment where somebody's like fidgeting with their hands and looking weird, you know, even if they were just fidgeting with their hands and looking weird, but it
Yeah.
could read as something different, you know. So it's really fun to build those elements.
Mm. So are you one that jumps to the end to see who the murderer is, or do you let the story develop as you read through?
You know what? I never do jump ahead, and I'm almost always wrong, which is, you know, my own stupidity. But I always think, oh, it'd be obvious it was if it was this person, so it's got to be this person, and then it was usually that first person. But if I'm being honest with myself, I was leaning this way, you know. So, yeah,
I
I
think
try
I'm
not,
probably more
you
like you.
know.
I'm always between two, and it's a 50-50 shot for me, I think. How about you, Brennan?
Yes,
You good at
yeah,
guessing?
I have found I'm a terrible guesser because I usually go with the first suspect and I have this whole idea of, oh, it's this person, they're gonna make it seem like it's not, but then it really is. And
right.
usually it's someone I didn't even think of. And so it,
That's interesting, though. We should go back and see how often it is that first suspect. That reminded me of, I didn't actually end up going, but I got called once to jury duty,
Mhm.
and I never actually got to because they picked the jury before, but it was for a murder case, and the guy walked in, and I was like, he's guilty. I was like, right
Mm.
away, just like, it's like I was like, oh, I would have been the worst juror. I just made up my mind on how he was kind of like scratching his arm and looked a little weird. I'm like, guilty. You know, so similar. First person, I'm like, you did it.
I actually would really be interested in what do you do for a living? Well, I direct murder mysteries. It would
Right.
of course
Yeah.
they
They're
would
like,
have
oh,
you
wait a
on.
second. That's a good point. I would love to one day be on one. It's never convenient to be on one, but and maybe not a murderer because that's too intense, but it's such an interesting thing, right?
Mhm.
So, but I think I'd be a bad juror.
I think I'd be right with you. Peter and I both be like, guilty, him. No? Okay. Well,
Look him up. Why? I don't know. He looks a bit weird,
whoops, sorry.
Whoops.
Oh,
It was
goodness.
close. It was close.
We were so close.
Exactly.
Well, Peter, we're so excited to talk about Christmas this past Christmas, and you have the opportunity to direct one of the most anticipated Christmas movies this past year, Christmas Above the Clouds. And us fans were so excited just to see Erin and Tyler back together and see the beloved Christmas Carol, come to Hallmark in a new, fresh way. So, will you just share that experience and what that was like for you behind the camera? And I mean, this movie had stunning visual effects and seriously, I think, one of the best Christmas Hallmark movies ever. We loved it so much. So, would you just
I
share?
think we should end on that. We should just end on that. Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, Christmas Above the Clouds, I think I've been fortunate to direct, I think somewhere in the 20s now in these Hallmark movies. And there's been like three scripts that I got where like when I started reading it, the hair on my arm stood up and that was one of them. And I remember just thinking like, this is such a great script. Christmas Carol is like the first play I saw where I was like, oh, Tiny Tim's like my age. I could do that or I want to do that. And so I love that play and that story. And yet it was also super ambitious. Like a lot of the visual effects and stuff that you're mentioning, like it's all right in there. Like the world tilts or some we came up with and, we shift into a different reality or whatever. And so, um, I remember just thinking, this reads so well, and I want to do it justice. I want to be able to make the visual story that this deserves. And I won't lie, when I first read it, I was like, is this a $15 million Netflix movie? Because it felt like we needed some more toys and some bigger things here. And but it wasn't. It was within our realm. And so with a really great creative team, we kind of figured out how to do a lot of that stuff. So I will say too, like that was such a team effort, from our other producers and our wardrobe designer and our production designer and my cinematographer. It was a real team effort, and it was just such a treat. And then so I got the script and I was blown away, and then they said Erin's attached to it, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I know if you've just seen Erin on When Calls the Heart, you might be like, what? There's no way she can, because she's so nice, but she's so witty and sharp. And I was like, oh man, she's got like a biting sense of humor that like
Mhm.
I love. Like Erin is smart, intelligent, like all those things. And so I'm like, she is going to eat this thing up. But what I was expecting and then what she brought to it, like she was so good. It was like I kept saying to her and she'd be like, shut up. But I was like, it's just so fun to watch you do this. Like, because she found this great balance of not being evil for evil's sake, but there was like she was playing the hurt, the things that had caused her pain is why she was the way she was, but there was still this sliver of humanity underneath it all, that and deep down a sense of hope for something good, and so she kind of walked that line, and also was just really funny because to be kind
Mhm.
of mean but funny is a like a really tall order. And I'm telling you, like, we had so much to do. Those days were jam-packed and crazy. And she was like, I cannot sing her praises enough. Like, she was like word perfect. What should we do? Where do you want me? Whatever. We have 3 seconds. Great. Cry out of this eye. Good. Like with a wind machine and all that. Nailed it. And so that was unbelievable. And so I got the script, then we got Aaron, and then, I said, who's the guy? And it was like radio silence. And then I Erin and I were texting, and she was like, "I think I might know who," and she was kind of teasing it out a bit, but it wasn't official. And then, of course, when Tyler came on, I was like, "Oh wow, this is like the dream team, these two."
Mhm.
And what was so great is they're in like they just have this natural chemistry that was like, you don't have to do too much. You just had to give them
Mhm.
some room to share the space together. And Tyler, again, that role obviously wasn't as big a character as Aaron's part, on the page. And he's the number one guy kind of for a reason, you know what I mean? He was able to make every moment on screen specific, have a history, have like a sense of hope, a sense of heartbreak, with 3 lines or something in a scene, and just make every moment count. And those two had clearly done their homework, so they were ready on each scene, each moment, because we had so much to do technically to make that all sing. That just knowing that they would be right there with each other was just like allowed us to be able to play and have some fun. So for me, it was probably one of my most memorable experiences in show business. Really, was making that movie with those two, and again, not just those two, but the whole crew. Like everybody was
Mhm.
amazing on that one. All of our everybody involved worked their tails off on that one, and like I said, I got the script and the production designer and I were working on a different movie when the script came through.
Sure.
And we were like, oh, wow, they're never in the same location in the first 30 pages, which means,
Mm.
we don't have the budget to run around to a million different locations. So how are we going to make this work? And plus time changes and, things like that, hair changes, wardrobe changes. But doing those ambitious ones is, I think, why we all try to get in the business. So I just felt really lucky to be a part of it.
Oh, it's so awesome, Peter. And it was stunning visually and just the way you all made it happen. You had scenes on the plane, you had travel scenes, you had flashback scenes, and even the camera movement was just so beautiful. And Erin and Tyler were absolutely fantastic, but even a wonderful supporting cast. You had
Totally.
Eric Gow. And oh, forgive me, the actress that played Ella's boss. Um, gosh, I
Oh,
remember,
Gabriel Rose?
yes, yes,
Yes. Oh my God, so
yes.
good.
I remember her from Let It Snow back in 2013.
Yes. Yeah.
So is just the whole cast was just so fantastic. And like you said about Erin's character Ella, she wasn't a character where, some characters they're just a full out jerk and you just
Yeah.
okay, can they please be off screen? I don't want to watch them. But there was something about her where it was just still so lovable, where you're like
Oh, totally.
being kind of rude, but like I love her. Like I want to keep going on this journey with her. So well
She,
done all around.
yeah, like I say, I don't know what awards she can win for this, but I think she should win them all. She was so good and also just like so easy and like I say, I remember like we were up against it time wise and resource wise. And there's that scene. I don't know if you remember. It's in the graveyard. It's right at the end, and she's like, "Please take me back, take me back." She's reaching up,
Incredible.
and then boom, she comes back to the bathroom on the airplane. And we had about 47 seconds to shoot that scene in the graveyard.
Oh my God.
So, maybe a few minutes more, but it was right up against it, and we got the wind machine and the snow and the thing. We're all, yeah, yeah. And Aaron's just like, boom, we had a little technical difficulty. Stay in it, keep the thing, got to go again. And man, I remember just like, I was like, that's a pro right there. She just
Yeah.
killed it in like 2 takes in 3 or 4 minutes in the dirty grass or whatever, and just so good. Even like the tear came out on like the right side of the camera so that we could see it. It was fun to watch, and there's a reason she's done so well.
Oh, amazing. And I have to say, the Christmas song that she and Tyler would dance to throughout the movie.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that song before, and I just became absolutely obsessed with it. So I immediately added it to my Spotify Christmas playlist. And
Oh,
I
amazing.
this is a classic. How have I never heard it before? So,
You know what? That came straight from Hallmark. That was
Mm.
our Hallmark exec Candace came up with that song for that. And
oh,
and uh and she was so dialed into everybody was very dialed in on this. And because that
yeah.
was the thing. So even in shooting it, we didn't know what song it was going to be. Right. So we
Oh,
don't have the song. So they're
okay.
doing it. We put a temp song in there, but you don't know what you're going to be able to get the rights to or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just like folded in. And obviously they'd done their previous movie, which everyone loves. And so that's I was like, okay, we can't try to compete with that because that was its own thing. And that
Mhm.
was this really fun movie. It is a great movie of them just flirting for 2 hours, and
Mhm.
banter, banter, banter.
Yeah.
And so, maybe some fans were expecting that, but this, I was like, we can't try to redo that in this because that's not what this story is. So we have to be honest to this story and they both were on board for that, you know. But it's hard, again, going back to it being harder than it looks, to just sit down on a little bench and gaze at each other with 40 people around, you know, while it's raining, but we're pretending it's not, and look comfortably and look in love and hopeful and all that. It's hard. And those two both just like, you're just behind the monitor watching the close-ups and just going, oh, there it is. Like they've
Yeah.
got it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
absolutely.
was hard to remember that she is not that person because she did bring you right in. And it like that's just the same person that I met. Oh, I gotta tell you a funny one. So we both have gone to the Hallmark Christmas experiences for the last 2 years.
Amazing.
And we've gone the One Calls the Heart weekend. And the first one was, of course, the first time meeting everybody, but the most excitement meeting Kevin. And so there is video of me like flying by Erin and her look on her face as I'm running because Kevin was expecting me, so running for the hug.
Oh,
And
so you're
like,
running to Kevin and she thinks you're running to her, sort of? Oh,
yeah,
amazing.
and it's literally
Right.
I
Amazing
slow
video.
motioned it. It was so funny, and I was so
That's a scene
mortified
in a
after.
movie. That's a scene in a movie.
I was so mortified afterwards to the point I gave her a hug afterwards. She goes, "Oh, I get one too."
Oh, I get one too? Yeah, thank you. Oh, that's really funny. You know, it's so obviously, you know, I'd auditioned for When Calls the Heart. I had a couple times I was supposed to be on it, and then something didn't work out timing wise. And so I've seen it over the years and knew it had a big following, but it wasn't until I worked with Kevin on the
Mhm.
Wedding Veil series where I sort of got introduced to how big a fan club it was. The Hardys are amazing. I mean, having fans like that is so lucky, you know, to get anyone to watch your
Mhm.
stuff. So getting to collaborate with both of them and anybody from the show, you know, Kevin Smith I've worked with a few times, and as you mentioned, Eric Gow, who's great. I first met him on Return to Office, and
Mhm.
then I immediately try to put him in every movie I've done since.
Yeah, please.
Um, and I'm just like, and you know, I came from a comedy background too, so I'm like, this guy is a genius. Just point the camera at him and let him go. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of where he's going to go.
We
Because
agree.
and luckily on this movie, because sometimes, you know, it's a team thing. It's not just the director, so there's the producers. And David and Jen, our producers, both loved him as well. So sometimes people like that, people are like, oh, don't get him to do all that stuff. Let's just rein it in. And we were all like, go, just keep doing whatever you want. And you know, he went, you know, and so really fun to watch him work.
Amazing. And that is so cool, Peter, that you've gotten to work with so many of these When Calls the Heart stars.
Yeah,
Well, really, the only, I mean, you just haven't been to the When Calls
Yeah.
the Heart set technically, but I think you're
I
already in the
haven't.
When Calls the Heart family. You really are.
I got to get out there. And now Benjamin Ayers, who's my best
Mhm.
friend from many years ago, is now on the prequel, and so I keep talking to him from the set. So I got to get out there one of these days.
Please do.
Yes, absolutely. And then we'll like to request a Kevin and Aaron modern movie. We think that would
Oh my
be
gosh,
that
yes.
comedy gold right there is beyond perfect.
I
Yes.
think honestly, not that they're not funny, but the bits of One Calls to the Heart that I've seen are more kind of heartfelt and everything. And both
Hmm.
Aaron and Kevin are really funny. And so if I could at all be involved in that, I would lean in 1,000% because they're like again, they're both fast, right? Which is what I love. And you know, and that's why Aaron was so great. Robert Buckley is very fast and witty. So those two had this great thing. And Aaron and Kevin would be amazing in a modern day rom-com.
So
So
amazing.
we'll put that out to the Hallmark gods.
Yes, we will be the first to support 200%.
Let's do it.
Well, based on that, I do have a question on chemistry. So, what creates the perfect on-screen kiss, would you say?
Ooh, well, I mean, first and foremost, you know, again, as a director, I think sometimes people take too much credit. First and foremost is if they actually have a little chemistry, you know, and being an actor is super weird, right? Like, so you're talking to your wife on the phone and the thing about the doctor's appointment, you hang up and you're like, I love
Make
you,
out.
you know, and make out, you know, and sometimes it's on day one, nice to meet you, you know. So you gotta like lose any sense of trying to be cool. Trying to be cool is death, you know, being vulnerable and letting the other person see you and you seeing them and kind of taking your time with it helps. And so that's for me, what I love is trying to create a space where we don't rush those moments. It's half about the look before, but then also you can't have this closed mouth kind of fishy kiss. We don't want that. We want a real kiss. We're all adults here. It's got to look like it matters, you
Heck,
know,
yes, Peter. Preach
you
it,
know.
Homework after
I
dark
also like the
girls.
double
So
kiss. I like the kiss, pull back look,
Peter.
and then the second kiss, and then we can do something fun with the camera to bring it up and the music. The kiss is like my favorite part. I always love the kisses, just
Us too.
because that's what the audiences were on the story for this. Life is stressful. We want to just be in this 2 hour thing where these nice people get together at the end, right? So it's got to count.
Absolutely. Oh, we are agreeing with you 1,000% on
Perfect.
Peter.
Love
well,
it. I love it.
we actually did talk with Jen after you guys were on set, and
Oh, great.
she was teasing Erin and Tyler's kiss, that she's just like, we had to take takes because of how hot they were, and her joke was, and of course, her being pregnant in real life, but she goes, I think she got pregnant on that kiss.
She said that on the
Tyler.
day. So I will say we were all watching and going like, okay. And again, it's a weird business. I remember I was directing a movie, not a Hallmark movie, way years ago, and my wife was in it, and I'm supposed to be pursuing her, and then she's with another guy. I'm supposed to go up and he kisses her. And totally understandably, the guy was uncomfortable because I'm the director. And I had to pull him aside. I'm like, I'm not believing this kiss. Like you gotta kiss her so that I get jealous. And he's kind of like, it's your wife. I'm like, who cares? We're making a movie. We got to do the thing, right? And so Tyler and Aaron both like are pros. They know what it is, and they like again, they have the little smolder and the look up after and all those little things. And Jen's right. It was they nailed it. It was a good moment. Yeah. And then that song, again, those are the things that you're trying to like. You add a little atmosphere into the lighting, a little camera move and the right song and all the little ingredients to make the kiss pop.
Absolutely. And we got a treat. There were a few kisses in that movie, so that was
Yes.
even better.
I remember Tyler saying along the way, it was like, man, I've never kissed this much in a Hallmark movie. But of course, it was different, right? Because we got to go back to happier times when they first kiss. And we even had to chart those, that kiss versus the kiss at the diner and the kiss at like when their proposal and all those things. And even their proposal was really sweet and it was within a big montage, right? And so that was one that I knew we couldn't rush, even though it felt like a fast moment. It had to like in 5 seconds, we had to want to be there with Jake and Ella. You want to be him in that moment. You want to be her. And so they, both got quite vulnerable and it said a lot without saying a lot, not a lot of dialogue. And that's a hard thing to do. And so, yeah, but there was, there was a lot of kissing in that movie.
We're fine with it.
We
Yes.
are,
I,
but that actually brings up another point. Sorry, so not confused. I'm excited about this. Is we are not waiting till the end for the big kisses anymore in a lot of these movies.
True. I mean, when I first started acting in them, it was that older sort of not formula, but it was definitely a model of like pretty much kiss, fade to black. Like we spent 2 hours trying to get there. And so now often it is earlier, right? And there's maybe a kiss and then that brings them together and then maybe something brings them apart and then they come back together or whatever. And so I don't think personally I never love a formula
Mhm.
because you want to be in the world of what we're telling, but you want something different. So if it makes place or makes sense to the story that they kiss earlier, you don't want to deny that either. Because that's also one of the battles. Sometimes you have adults, full-blown adults, and they've gone on 8 dates and now they're standing outside someone's door, and if they don't kiss, that's almost weird. You know what I mean? Like, or unless it's like the next day is, I can't believe I didn't kiss her. What was I thinking? And we're talking about it, but often it wasn't. And it's interesting because we did in Blind Date Book Club. I'm not sure if you guys saw that one.
Mhm.
It was Aaron and Robert Buckley, and they had an early kiss that wasn't scripted. So it
Oh,
was like he walks her home, they have this date, and they're kind of by her door. And I was like, they've got to kiss. Like they have to kiss. This is just they've earned it. They're both adults. They look like that this is the moment. It would almost be weird. And we shot it both ways, and I was so grateful that they kept the kiss in. Because it just felt earned in that moment. And then, like I say, there's a hiccup that occurs that maybe he's going to keep them apart and then they get back together. But I think as long as it feels earned, it's the right thing. Or if it's earned and then they don't do it, it doesn't feel right.
Correct. And that kiss was good. It was a good one.
Mhm.
And even just after the kiss, you see both of them kind of on either side of the door,
That's
just
my favorite shot in the movie. Yeah.
in that moment. And it just was that feeling of, oh, yes, this is what we want to see more of, because it is just so visually beautiful and satisfying and so well done.
Yeah. And again, both did a lot with without any words in that moment. And so I was so glad that door moment worked. I remember working with Jesse Young, our director of photography, when we first saw that house of how are we going to make this little, because I think it was scripted at the front door, but we're like, if we get it there, then we can see both their faces. But then it snowed on us, which I don't know if
Mhm.
you remember, but it was like one of those days. It was like perfect weather, snow for 2 days, perfect weather. So we had a lot of moving parts in Blind Date Book Club to work around this random snowstorm in the middle of nowhere. That was another one where, like I say, we were up on the Sunshine Coast in British Columbia. So we were up there for 5 days to get all these beautiful coastal shots. And they're like, okay, so it's gonna be snowy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we had to move everything up to Monday, Tuesday that was outside, and then we were able to kind of plan around it. And so in situations like that, the actors just need to be ready. Like, hey, remember that scene you were going to do Friday? We're shooting in 5 minutes, kind of thing. So it's like I say, it's a harder job than people realize, but those two were both great, and I thought they had a really nice chemistry. That's
Oh,
where I first met both of them actually, and I was like, oh, these two are both the real deal, and I'd love to do another one with both them.
oh, we'd love that. They were fantastic together.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
great chemistry.
Well, I was gonna say we're not under any authority, but we're hiring you for all the rom-coms because you get it. And
Oh,
not to say
thank
that a
you.
lot of
Sold.
You
not
do.
that a lot of directors don't, but I think everything that you said specifically about the kiss is exactly what we're talking about. And the other thing is you're right. These are grown-ups. I mean, like everybody's lived
Yeah.
this life. And so it is weird when it isn't something that it should be. There is that balance.
I remember, and I won't say his name, but one of the actors in one of the things that I was doing is probably maybe 45 or something. And there was a line where the female character says to him, have you ever been in love before? And he says, no. And then he turned to me and said, am I a complete psycho? I'm 45 years old. I've never been in love. And so we changed it, not to say that people can't have
Right.
been in love, but, he's like, that speaks more to my character that I've never been vulnerable like as opposed to yeah I have and I've been hurt and it didn't work out and that's informing where I'm at now, so maybe I have my guard up, maybe I've given up hope
Mhm.
because I was in love twice before and I got my heart broken or she didn't like or it didn't work out or whatever those things are, and that's again that's interesting, right? That's who is this character? Are they going to allow themselves the risk of trying it again, and is this the right time or not? And those are things that all of us can relate to, and so I always try to find like what's underneath the story, right? And who are these people before we met them, and not just in a like what they did for a living, but like, and so those are the things that you can kind of even work on with them of like, okay, it's not here. Let's chart out what do we think happened? Who broke your heart, or did you break someone's heart and then you've regretted it ever since, or whatever that thing that we come to, but that's going to inform all these little moments and those little looks. And again, sometimes as a director, you're finding those beats with them. Again, when I talk about somebody like Tyler and Erin, you're just feeling like they've done that homework, like because in their looks there is so much behind it without also forcing it, which can then be weird, right? So it's got to just be like you like feeling that lived experience.
Absolutely, 100%. And those are qualities and characters that we love and we appreciate because there have been movies with characters, they have that conversation of, "Oh, have you ever been married?" or, "Nope, I'm just waiting for the right one." Me too. Okay. And you're thinking, "Wait, what
Yeah,
that's the history, so
totally.
People like that, Brennan. But yeah, but the majority of real life have lived a life that has had hurt. And that was the other
Yeah.
thing. We just talked with Nicole Baxter, and
Oh
she
yeah.
did Blind Book Club, and we were talking about how for she just did The Way to You, where it was, like there were real, like I said, there I've never heard a Hallmark movie where you're talking about have you talked about kids yet? And these people had only been on like 2 or 3 dates. And like,
Sure.
and I was like, that's a little bit more faster than I was expecting. But at the same time,
Sure.
those are real questions that people might need to know, that you need to adjust, that you don't think you do until after you get married, which is not the right time sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, no, and especially again with some of the characters being older. I have a friend who's sort of, he's almost 50, recently single again, and he sort of gets to that on like day two because he's already had kids. If this is
Mm-hmm.
something you're wanting, I'm not sure if I'm wanting that again. Like he's like, I don't have time to try to find that out down the road because I don't want to also misrepresent to this
Yeah.
person the wrong intention, and so those are really real things. And again, the thing about, like you said, is even sometimes it hurts. So saying even like, have you ever been in love before? Maybe you've never actually had a relationship with the person that you were in love with, but maybe you were in love with the girl that your best friend got together with. And like for years you had a crush on her and then it never worked out. Like again, those are very human things, or not your best friend or just somebody else or whatever. Um, almost everybody can relate to something like that, right? And so I think that's what tries you just always try and find something that's going to connect an audience to the people, right? And anything that's human and vulnerable uh, and honest, I think people connect to.
1000%. Well, we can end on a few quick questions that'll be
Sure.
really quick for you. So, Brennan, do you want to kick off with one?
Yes, I would love to. Well, Peter, it's also been so fun to see you in Hallmark movies. And I really just quickly want to mention, so one of my favorites is A Bride for Christmas with Andrew Walker. You were in that movie, and that's back from 2012. Still a classic for me. And so since then, I've seen you in Hallmark movies that I have loved and watch over and over again. So will you just share just quickly, you can share quickly, just kind of your journey, like from acting to now directing?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny that you say that. So that was my first Hallmark movie.
It
Uh,
was.
and I believe it was Andrew Walker's first Hallmark movie.
I think it
Yes.
was.
And we have not worked together since. I actually just saw him about 2 weeks ago. Our kids played hockey at the same rink, and we were like, so I think we're long overdue for a reboot. But that was a
Agreed.
really fun movie. That was a great movie, and yeah. So I mean, I think why I do love directing these, and whether it's even writing a bit or producing or acting, is like as an actor in Vancouver, there was always all these sci-fi shows. And I just that wasn't my hit. I don't look like a big weird alien or a big military guy. So those were kind of so I'd
Mhm.
audition and get nothing. And then all of a sudden I remember literally that audition and there was a few that came up right around then. And I'm like, this is it. Like I love rom-coms. This is my world. And so I was very happy that all of a sudden these Hallmark movies started coming up. And when we first did that one, you didn't even really know it was going to become a thing, right? And so I was really lucky and obviously played like the other guy in a lot of them, which is also funny because I got to play a lot of jerks, which I don't think I am in real life, but it's really fun to play on screen. You get to be a little edgier than you maybe are. So, I was pretty fortunate to get a few things in a row, and then I got on the Aurora Tea Garden mysteries, which again we didn't know if that would be one or two or whatever, and we ended up doing like 18 over 7 years or something like that. And I'd started writing and producing a little before I did. I directed my first movie, I think, in 2011, and I'd been writing and producing, and I'd done my wife and I write and produce together. So we'd done a comedy pilot with the Canadian network, and then we did a few movies, and so then I got to shadow on Aurora Tea Garden as a director, and I never asked for anything. I didn't want to overstep, and then I really owe so much to Candace Cameron and to Jim Head, who was the producer of that, because they just literally they knew I was doing these movies. I think they'd seen my indie films or something, and just put me forward to direct. And so Hallmark asked me to shadow a couple more times. But I had been making movies and TV, outside of Hallmark for, 8 years or 9 years or something at that point. A lot of screenplays that kind of got sold and didn't get made and all those things. So I had been doing stuff behind the scenes. But that was really how I kind of got into it. And so I did that one. And then after Aurora Tea Garden, I think Lacey Chabert and Candace talked or something. So Lacey got me to do a crossword mysteries, and then we did Sweet Caroline after that, and that kind of got me into this realm. And it's a weird thing because when you're first acting, directing, especially in Vancouver, because I've been, knock on wood, fortunate to work as an actor. So the crew is kind of like, oh, this actor's trying to direct or whatever, even though I'd gone to film school 20 years before and all these things. Um, and then I remember I was doing Guiding Emily. I was on Vancouver Island acting in that. And I heard the crew, because I've done about five or six, or I can't remember how many movies over there now, but they're like, hey, you're one of the directors is acting in this thing? And I was like, yes, I finally crossed over where they weren't rolling their eyes at the actor directing, but like, who's this director think he is trying to play with the dog up here or whatever. So that was a good moment because I felt like I'd kind of earned my stripes to the crew. And I love doing both, but that was kind of how it all started.
Mm. So
So do
when
you find yourself easy to direct?
Very temperamental, really finicky about the lighting, quite vain, and a lot of attitude. But
Mm,
I've got a couple secrets for how to get in on there.
absolutely, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
when you are in a movie that you are directing yourself, like is your character like written in the script? Like, do you have to audition, or is that kind of something like a privilege? Like, hey, I really would kind of like to play this character, do this cameo.
Well, again, I've never, it's so many people in show business are good at schmoozing and asking for things. I'm way too Canadian. I just sit there politely and wait till someone asks me to do something. So, again, in the beginning, because I had done so many Hallmark movies that sometimes the producer would be like, "Why don't you just play this role or do the thing?" Or the network would. So normally it comes from something like that, or the actor saying, you should. And in the Hannah Swensen alley, just sort of said, "Why don't you play this guy at the thing?" And I was like, "Sure," and which is great. I love doing it. I would, again, I don't want to ever ask for it because I feel like if they've hired you to do this one thing, then that's what I'm here to do, not to try and sell myself or something else. But I also have been doing it a lot. So to me, it's not a huge challenge. Like I think like some people think that might be harder than it is, but you do so much work prepping how you're going to shoot it and everything that, as long as you in the rehearsal have somebody else walk it through, I can kind of wear both hats a bit. So I love doing it.
That's amazing. It
And
works.
we love
It
hearing it.
works. It seems just easy and seamless and smooth. So you got.
Oh, thank you.
Well, let's end on your favorite rom-com and maybe your favorite rom-com actor.
Hmm.
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite rom-com. Oh, there's so many good ones. My wife and I both loved How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And I mean, they were both so good in that movie. Talk about charm and charisma. I mean, they are both like just like he's on screen and you're like, oh, he's amazing. And then she's on screen and you're like, oh my God. So both those two are great. I also think like Ryan Reynolds is so charming and funny, and the fact that he's like this big ripped dude, but also like insanely funny. I think, he's great. And then I've always had a soft spot for Jennifer Aniston. So she's probably my favorite rom-com actress.
Fantastic
Jason
choice.
Bateman too, as well. I love Bateman.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many
What
good
was
ones.
the
I
what was
also
that
love
one
Tom Hanks
together?
coming up too.
Oh, Tom Hanks,
Sorry.
absolutely.
So they
Yeah.
did the switch together, didn't they? Jason and Jennifer, was it
Yes.
the
Oh
switch
yeah.
where
So
yes.
funny.
That's a great movie.
They're both
And I
so
love
good in that.
what I'm loving is that you get to relive so many of these because Netflix is really bringing the 90s
Exactly.
rom-coms back into their catalog. So,
I
yeah.
will say though, my kids are 10 and 12, and so my wife and I keep going like, "Oh, let's watch whatever." And then all of a sudden you watch it, you're like, "I don't remember that scene." Let's, So they're not necessarily, not to everyone's to each their own, but they're not necessarily for the young crowd, all those 80s, 90s rom-coms.
They are not, and neither we had this conversation with Nicole Baxter because her favorite one is Matthew McConaughey, and that because we
Oh,
asked her
so good.
if a lot of times she envisions somebody when she's writing,
Sure.
and she's just like that one came to mind. But we said the same thing about cartoons. We're like, how much of that Disney stuff went right over our
Oh,
head,
totally. Yeah.
and it
And
still
and
does.
again, we'll watch shows with our kids and I kind of look at if there's something spicy, and 9 out of 10 times my son who's 12 is starting to snicker at all the right things. So I'm like, okay.
It's happening.
It's
Thank-
happening. Yeah, we just watched How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which I'd actually never seen. And again, it's super charming and fun, but there's like out of nowhere, like the odd, quite aggressive thing that you're like, whoa, that's and again, my wife and I both would go like this, and then both the kids seemed to not really know what was going on.
I say this in every one, but my favorite is While You Were Sleeping. And if you haven't seen
Oh,
that with the kids, that's a good safe
oh, I
one.
haven't seen that with the kids. That's such a good movie.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's the multi-generational too, and that's the perfect
Yeah,
age to introduce how the family getting in there and meddling, and then just but loving, so lovable, for what the
that's a
storyline.
good one. I'm gonna watch that with them.
Oh, well, you have to let me know what they think of it.
I will. Yeah, no, we're always looking for a good movie that we can actually all watch together.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us, Peter. This was great.
Thanks so much for having me and for supporting the shows and the actors and the
Oh,
filmmakers. It's great. Like I say, as Hallmark creators, it's great to have such an awesome fan base and people that appreciate the shows. So thank you for promoting them.
Oh, always. It's our pleasure.